All right, here we go with another episode of the Dietitian Against Diets podcast. I want to remind you all, my name is Rashonda Thorne, and I am the host. I'm always bringing on powerful guests, and I can't wait to introduce you to one I have coming on today. But before I do, I have to acknowledge one of my podcast partners that has been with me since day one. Janie's Mill. So one thing about Janie's Mill, reason why they are a podcast partner, because they are an organic family farm that combines better tasting foods when it comes to their grains, but also ensuring that the quality, the agricultural practices, and the nutrition are top quality. Speaking upon their work, they actually have a unique grain milling system where they use cold stone graining milling, which makes it to where the grains are still having the capacity to hold all their nutritional value, and are great when it comes to their texture and their taste when it comes to baking. Now, their products range all the way from a variety of corn, wheat, rye, oats, buckwheat, and ancient grains, which means there are a lot of fun ways to bake with their goods. Actually, if you go to their website, they have a plethora of recipes that goes from homemade scones all the way to homemade chocolate chip cookies. So go on their website and just see more about their products, how they utilize their products, and also the work that's been done behind the scenes. Go to the website at www.janiesmill.com or find them on Instagram at janiesmill. Well, happy 2021. We are still in it and going strong. I want to say welcome to the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. I'm your host, Rashonda Thornton. And I have along with me a lady named Ashley Holly. Let me tell you a little bit about Ashley, because after reading her bio and digging into more about what she represents herself as a dietitian, I was like, this is just another repeat of me on the other side of the world. So let me tell you a little bit about her. I would call her a more mindful-centered dietitian who focuses on living a life without diet rules and restrictions. Along with her own personal journeys of overcoming her personal mental and physical health, it has allowed her to help others through their own struggles with food. Holly, that's your last name, Ashley. I do want to just say, thank you for coming on today. And I'm just really excited to just learn more about you and just how you even got to know what you do for a living as a dietitian. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be here.
Yes. And I didn't ask you earlier, but where you live at right now? Where are you located?
We are on the east side of Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. And that's what I love about, connecting in conversations, especially now. We're, having, opportunities like this to meet other people that's not in your remote location. I mean, it's such a joy to meet other people in other parts of the world. Especially dietitians, and I told you that earlier, they have very similar mindset approaches when it comes to nutrition. And that's one thing I did want to talk to you about, because one thing you mentioned, and this is something that I really feel resonates to a lot of people, is that you've been there, and that's something really, really compelling, because, some people, obviously coaching or counseling, you're always wearing a counseling hat, and it's good because you have the tools to appropriately communicate and to coach, but it's a lot different when you actually have been in that person's shoes, So I would like for you, if you're so inclined, just speak upon your own personal journey and kind of how you got to this point to where you saw nutrition in a way of utilizing it for something way more valuable as far as self-love and self-care versus the way we've kind of been taught in society.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I enjoy sharing my story, and I hope it helps other people to be brave and to continue their growth even when it hurts, because man, growth can hurt a lot. And so, just continuing to surrender to that through their journey. But my journey started back in 2009 after graduating from my dietetic internship, becoming an RD. My first job was in Chicago at an integrative cancer center, and
Okay.
I chose to adopt the diet that I was asking of my clients. I felt that was just the right thing to do, which happened to be low fat and vegan. And over the course of of about 2 years, my health started to really decline, attempting to follow that perfectly. Looking back at the time, I wasn't able to see it, but looking back now, I can. And what I started to do, I wasn't aware of it, but what I started to do was I would binge and restrict quite substantially, but it wasn't so obvious even to me. So I would be a perfect like low fat vegan during the day, especially at work, especially with my clients and my patients. And then at night, I
Hmm.
would binge eat anything that was like sweetened with fruit juice or anything that fit the rules of my diet. But I would binge it in a way where it was like an entire jar of chocolate fruit juice sweetened syrup from Whole Foods or something, wherever I could get my hands on something highly, highly, highly sweet and sugary. So
Hmm.
and then, of course, I would completely numb out during that experience. I'd engage in television or something else and go to bed and then wake up and do it all over again, kind of be perfect during the day and binge at night.
Huh.
And that continued. And then, as that continued, my mental health also started to decline. And so, not only did I start to get really bloated and constipated, but I also started to get signs of pretty significant depression looking back.
Wow.
And again, I
Yeah.
didn't know it at the time. But my breaking point was when I was pregnant with my first child. I had already moved out of Chicago. I got married, pregnant with my first child, and actually found myself binge eating um, meat, a Reuben sandwich specifically, locked inside of our bathroom, hiding from my husband. Not because he had ever been shameful, but because
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid and needed to people please and needed to show up with perfection. Um, and that's when I really started to say, hey, what am I doing outsourcing my needs to these food rules instead of listening to my body and just allowing myself to feel what I need
Mm-hmm.
and forgive myself for not being perfect?
Wow. And then being a dietitian, that can be a slippery slope because you know the information.
Extremely.
Yeah,
Extremely. Yeah.
and that's something that I guess many people don't. We're human as well. And the things that we experience. We also as people we're teaching great help, but we're still human as well. And so I just want to commend you for just kind of stepping out there and just kind of letting. I mean, people would think, oh my God, a dietitian, is doing the same things that but it's just real, But the thing is that
It's so real.
you can use that to work with other individuals that these are similar things that they're dealing with and help them to figure out, what are they doing and how can they turn that story around. So I appreciate you just, taking a moment just to illustrate that. It was great. Yeah, and very
Absolutely. Yeah,
powerful.
it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Anyone who binges and restricts, I want them to know that they're definitely not alone. I even remember when when I finally showed up, like really kind of owned my behavior and started talking to my husband about it. It became then like, okay, well, I'm going to eat this hamburger, but don't take a picture of me and don't let it show up on social media. So I still had a lot to like move through because I had so
Yeah.
much shame, which
Mm.
of course triggers a lot of secrecy, right? And then people pleasing when we
Yep.
are with others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
It's not funny, but it just reminded me of like as soon as I eat like a, a Jolly Rancher or something, people always said, "Oh, I want to post that." I'm like, first of
Yeah.
all, it's nothing wrong with that. It's all about balance. And if I did and posted it, it's about helping people to see that there's a real person behind the scenes, and no one should live by these rules of perfection. If I'm showing you these are things I enjoy, however, these are a plethora of other things I enjoy that's still serving to my body.
Correct.
That's where the balance comes from. So I totally understand what you mean, but I know like something like that. The fact what resonated from that moment was like the feeling of shame or creating some expectation
Yeah.
of what others how they should see you, and that's kind of a reality
Right.
check. Now just even with that, what were some of the things? 'Cause I want to talk a little bit more like how did you like come out of that and how did that change the trajectory of your nutritional services and how you work with individuals?
Yeah, so it actually took me quite a while in that time frame where I was really struggling with mental health and physical health, despite being perfect and eating all the healthy foods. And I'm doing air quotes for anyone who's only
Mm-hmm.
getting the audio here, because perfect doesn't exist, and healthy foods. In my program, we don't use the word healthy, um, but we look at what supports your goal and which is different for
Mm-hmm.
everybody. But in that time, I actually became a yoga and meditation teacher. And so that started to play a really big role in how I saw food and what I started to do on my end in order to heal. Simultaneously, I put one foot into functional nutrition as my first job was in integrative nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really interesting um, connection there for me. And I realized that looking at my own genetic reports, which I'm a total nerd about this stuff, I absolutely love it, that I'm actually not meant to be vegan at all, and that I thrive, and I'm a pretty inefficient methylator. So what that meant is my vegan diet destroyed my dopamine status, hence
Wow.
severe depression and anxiety that only
Yes,
got
that's
worse
how it
with
all.
my pregnancies. Yeah. So this perfect healthy diet was destroying me slowly. So in that functional nutrition piece, I was able to step out and really become aware of what I needed to do to restore my mental health. But a big piece of that also meant no longer obsessing about food and learning to trust my body. So that's
Mm-hmm.
when I pulled a lot of my meditative training, my meditation training, and the awareness that you build through a meditation practice back into my life, and then formed um, my method of helping clients become more intuitive eaters, which I
Mm-hmm.
call craving courage.
I like it. Craving courage.
Yeah,
That's a new one. I love it. Yes. And that's the thing, craving courage. Like it's scary. And that's why I think,
it's so scary.
that's why people lean, I have this thing, I'm called the dietitian against diets for very similar reasons, but because we're not strong enough, we don't recognize our strength, we lean on this
Hmm.
pre-made list or process or program that promises us that if we just follow it and follow it exactly, we're promised XYZ. And that becomes our like safety
Hmm.
net. And I always say, people, and we're going to talk about this topic because I really want to talk about the topic about the diet messaging and like a perfection and, don't eat this, don't
Oh
eat
yeah.
that, food is good or bad, and the whole diet mentality. Because, I truly know the reason why people go for diets because they feel hope that this is going to help them to be happy. Whatever that means, whether
Yeah.
it's to lose the weight or change body composition or improve their health, they lean it because it gives them a feel of hope every single time. Every single time you try something, oh, let me
Hmm.
just try this. You think about it because you feel hopeful, right? But almost
Right.
9 times out of 10, Ashley, it leaves people feeling hopeless. And that's distraught.
Yeah.
That's feeling defeated. That's feeling like I can't do it. That's it all. It's like it all just falls back down. But yet again, we still find our ways. We still try to depend on it. So obviously, for so many years, this is the
Yeah.
cycle we found ourselves. Perhaps there's something different. So let's talk about diet messaging. And tell me what your
Yeah.
thoughts on
Yeah.
when it comes to, I feel when people go on a diet, they totally lose connection to themselves because they're focused on following these rules, checking these boxes. So speak upon what you think when it comes to
Yeah.
the diet messaging and that connection or lack of connection to really what's beneficial for their body.
Yeah, well, first, like one of my big reframes that I think is so powerful is that the diet industry really is gaslighting their clientele, right? They say, "Hey, come like follow our program, but if you fail, it's on you, like you're the broken one," right? And when like that word gaslighting has it has a lot of momentum right now, like in our decade. And
Mm-hmm.
so I find it's a fun buzzword. Well, it's not fun, right? If you've experienced it, it's not fun at all, but it's a buzzword to help motivate and retrain the brain. And that's what I mean by fun. So I think that can be a really powerful reframe on that, and to help you pull out from your dieting history, or anyone who's been dieting, and say, wow, this is just really an abusive relationship with dieting, right? And I can rebuild now that I see it, because awareness precipitates change. But to speak to the diet, and right, that sense of, hey, if you follow all of these rules, you're going to get exactly what you want. But the only thing that actually changes when you diet for body modification is your body, which is usually the goal is a number on a scale, which is not functionality, and it is not health, and it is not happiness. We know that women who diet aren't actually happier
Mm-hmm.
when they hit their weight loss goal.
Hmm.
And in fact, positive psychology research shows that well-being has gone down. I actually have that citation and the graph on my Instagram for people to see if they're curious of like, oh, really? I want to read that research. It's there, it's available. So happiness actually goes down after dieting because then you're left with the question of, well, one, I don't look like the after picture that I was sold, right? Two,
Yeah.
I've given up so much and I'm so disconnected to my body. How the heck am I going to go to the party, the wedding, the holiday and feel happy? And how am I going to release myself of this guilt? I feel guilty every time.
Mm-hmm.
So the well being goes down along with the weight, which often isn't sustainable in the first place and usually doesn't impact your health very much.
It doesn't. And also
And that's
too,
part of like the abusive relationship.
and not even knowing it's abusive. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, right.
in
And
speaking of
that's gaslighting, right? Thinking
yeah.
it's like our fault, like, and then blaming ourselves.
Wow. That is so true. That is so true. And even when you're talking about like when they're at that weight, this whole idea of this euphoric feeling of them being free and happy, they're actually in a whole nother field of more oppression or more extra added expectations because now they got to stay at that weight, and now they're walking on ice. Now they're scared to make a choice because they feel that it'll fall and plummet backwards. So now it's a whole nother
Yes.
ball game of just trying to stay with it. It's kind of like it's like you're nervous about making this choice because you work so hard to get here, and as soon as you decide to have that pizza or that brownie, oh, everything's gonna come back, which typically it does because we don't understand how the process of connecting with what we're eating and why we're eating it versus I'm just gonna stop doing it because if I do this, then my weight will be a certain weight and then I'm happy. When the whole
Yes.
time you're not happy, and then when you get to this idea of happiness, you're still not happy.
Correct.
Isn't
It's
it
not
something?
true happiness. And your brain will hedonically adapt or it'll return to its baseline anyways. Whenever we introduce like a new thing in our life with quotes, right? Like when Amazon delivers to my house, I get a nice little dopamine, but I'm not actually happier in the long run. Only if I invest in my relationships am I truly happier in the long run. And weight is actually the same thing, or the concept of the perfect body. It does the same thing to the brain.
I'm glad you brought that up because you also mentioned like when there's a marketing promise you just is a certain look that you're gonna have, and you do everything it tells you, and then the look is not the same. I think a lot of too is like how we compare ourselves to each other, and whether you realize it or not, we're comparing ourselves to either our pictures when we're in high school or our best friend or our relative who did this certain diet. Like we don't even understand like how to look at ourselves as individuals and look at nutrition as more of a self-discovery versus I need to do this to look like XYZ. And then again, it just adds on to the feeling of not being worthy, not loving yourself, not being happy. It's like you're always working towards something and you don't even know. People work towards happiness, but they don't really know what happiness means because they may have never really gotten there, And so like,
Right.
Talking about unrealistic expectations and comparing ourselves to others. How how would you work with people on how to work through these types of pressures?
Oh, social comparison. That's the hardest. Like, I think that is the greatest obstacle in overcoming or like breaking free of dieting and like truly restoring your health and happiness.
Yeah,
Social
it's
comparison.
so many different.
It's not easy, but generally, like one of the most impactful and effective things that we can do, because social comparison starts with mindset, is really like affirmation work, right? So reminding ourselves multiple times a day, up to hundreds of times a day with a post-it, or I love taking a dry erase marker to the mirror in my bathroom because that is something I look at least twice a day when I'm brushing my teeth. And and then I see it for 2 minutes. It's just like I'm reading the same thing over and over again while I'm brushing my teeth. The same message that I need. And so affirmations are really powerful for
Do you,
behavior change, one of the most powerful tools we have. And that is a great place to start with social comparison. So I'm good enough, I'm an individual, I am
mm-hmm.
worthy, whatever affirmation speaks to
Yeah.
them. And then I would
It,
say like a social media audit is definitely powerful.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Start discerning between what you're surrounding yourself by, and and one thing you said, I have a thing where I call a mirror mantra, and I have clients
Yeah.
create their own mirror mantra, so they're able to look at themselves in the mirror and start to whatever their mirror mantra is, it's personal to them, but it resonates to them to help them remember, like, what's the reason for them doing this? So what is the bigger picture here? What are we really driving for? And I think it's so powerful, like you say, we need to make sure that we have to remind ourselves, because we can't depend on others to remind us. We can't, we don't need attaboys or someone else. If we can't create our own self-affirmations, we're always going to have to lean on something. And I think what you're saying is it's teaching people how to build upon their own self-worth and their self-value and start to create that within themselves,
Yeah.
Yes. And then, yes, what we're surrounding ourselves by totally influences us, impacts us. If we're constantly scrolling through social media or watching certain movies or just getting obsessed in, a person, the way that they look, we're just the whole time just creating more and more and more doubt and gap into who we are and our value within ourselves. But now we're looking at them as the reference point, and we are our own reference point. So I really, truly believe what you're saying. Like, how can we start working through that comparison piece? Is first, you recognize who you are and you create who you are. And then start kind of taking a look at what is the subliminal messaging that's happening, and we're influenced in so many ways in society.
Yes, absolutely. And just auditing, like, when am I using myself as a reference point, and when am I using others as a reference point? And what is the story I'm telling myself about that other person? And also, how often am I on social media? Because I find that that's the greatest distraction, if you will, from us utilizing ourselves as a reference point. So that's a big thing that I think we can all really benefit from, is moving outside of binary thinking and into gray, right? Like, we're never going to be perfect. And as long as Facebook and Instagram and all the things are around, which aren't bad, they're an excellent source of connection. I mean, I am in so many plant groups that I absolutely love to engage in, and parenting groups that I absolutely love to engage in. I love Facebook. But when I'm scrolling mindlessly and starting to feel like crap about myself, that's a time when I kind of notice, okay, I'm being distracted from what I truly find is my reference point. Let me come back.
That's a good
Kind of
thought
the audit.
process.
That's the practice.
Yeah. When you start feeling that type of way, then that probably means we need to put the phone down and find something that's more enriching and empowerment for self, because that's not going to help you at all. It only, again, creates a spiral. Yeah. One of the things that you really focus on too is this thing called gratitude over willpower. And so I wanted to speak about, like, kind of your definition of what that means and how you incorporate it into the lives of the individuals that you work with.
Yeah. So, well, what I stumbled upon through a podcast called The Happiness Lab, and I highly recommend that one, as well as Rashonda's Dietitian Against Diets podcast.
Thank you.
But was
Thanks for the plug.
Awesome literature. Yeah. that review, or it was a literature review of a paper done that actually showed that gratitude is more effective than willpower in protecting our future self, right? So anytime we set up a goal, like, I want to be able to play with my grandchildren on the floor, right? That's an awesome goal. And then get up from the floor to standing with only using one point of support. Those are beautiful functional goals that speak to our health and our joy. So anytime we set up that goal, that's putting ourselves into the future. And now, how does that impact the now? How do we protect our future self? How do we protect that goal? Gratitude, when put side by side by willpower, which of course diets tell you, hey, just follow the rules and use your willpower, which is impossible over a lifetime.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Yes. Willpower is your brains, like the neuroscience of brains, they literally get tired and they need to oscillate between willpower, or, well, not really, not, right? But they need to oscillate between what they're doing, which means they just need different tasks. which is why stay-at-home moms can be super exhausted, because we also need to take off the mom hat and do something else. Or
Mm-hmm.
people who work all the time are exhausted because they need to take off that hat. Okay, so I'm getting off topic, but
I totally get it though.
you can, yeah. So the brain needs to oscillate. Another reason willpower doesn't work. That being said, gratitude is more effective than willpower in our goal achievement. So we can use that in health. And what's cool is that not only are we going to be achieving our health goals, but we're also going to be protecting our happiness and our mental well-being, which I'm really, really passionate about after living through really severe depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So utilizing gratitude instead of willpower when you're trying to make a choice. So let's say you're grocery shopping, you walk past the bakery, you're totally hit with that amazing smell of donuts, right? Donuts are one of my favorite foods, and they're a food I love, love, love to savor with my children. I'm really intentional about consuming them. But they used to be the food where I'd buy 4, I'd eat 3 on the way home, and I'd tell my husband I bought 1, right? Again, shame.
I
So
see.
normal. So normal. So I love to talk about donuts. But so you're hit with this overwhelming smell of donuts. You could either choose to say, no, like, I'm not good enough as I am right now, which is essentially saying, right, I need to change. I'm not good enough as I am right now. I can't have the donut, like, keep walking. But eventually, after your 3rd, 4th, 5th grocery
Yeah,
trip, you're going to be buying 4 donuts and
it's
eating 3 on the
happening.
way home.
Yep.
Right, right. Instead, you can shift into a place of gratitude. Like, I'm so proud of what I've been doing. I'm so grateful for my mental and physical health. I'm so grateful for the events that I'm able to do because, so, like, whether it's I get to hike in the park, I get to go camping, I get to go on bike rides with my kids or my friends or my family, or go for walks with my girlfriends. I'm so grateful for all of those moments. And I believe that having 1 donut, no donuts today, or waiting until I go and have brunch with my girlfriends to have whatever it is I want, the mimosas, I believe that that is going to nourish me even more. So we
Hmm.
can step in with gratitude, and it's not as challenging to make a choice that supports your goals, whatever it is. I sometimes stumble talking about goals because I really want anyone listening to know that they're truly individual. So anything I
Yes.
say as an example, move away from that social comparison piece, like, oh, that's not me or that
Disclaimer.
is me. Yeah, it's disclaimer on my examples.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
like
so
to.
I hope that helps.
No, it
Yeah.
does because it's when it comes to our most beloved desserts. And donuts is one to use as an example. We love it for a reason. It's I can go take this love how it's connected to other things in our life as to why we love donuts or whatever that we're connected to. But we again have to realize it's not an all or none. The donuts aren't bad, but how can we find a way to be intentional having it when we can use it as a form of gratitude versus I'm just going to sneak and have it, and then whatever negative thoughts or feelings that come about it, I'll deal with it then. We always feel like that cost of the benefit of having a donut in that way is worth the cost. And it can be done. It is something, I always go back to balance, but being able to recognize how can you be intentional about having it to where you're appreciating, you bring it into a moment of appreciation versus I have to hide and sneak and eat it because I don't want anyone to know that I like donuts, So I totally get it.
Absolutely.
You did say something about, and this is in your bio, you said something about, I loved it. We're talking about body shame. And you said body hate doesn't create health. And I'm going to say it again slowly. Body hate doesn't create health. And it's so true because if we don't learn to love ourselves physically and emotionally, then we're not going to interact with things that are loving, And so we don't really know we don't recognize how can we show love to our body by, I always say, gifting it with those nutrients that's going to create that health. And a lot of times we don't know how to love ourselves, and we don't recognize how important nutrition connects to loving ourselves, And I think that's just something to think about because when we are ashamed of who we are, we we're talking negative to ourselves. We're looking down on ourselves. So how can health come out of that? It's not.
Exactly.
It's not possible. So now I just saw that and I was like, wow, that was a really good one.
Good. Thank you.
And another one I liked. And this is where I knew that you and I were on the same page. It's not a diet; it's the mental part we need help with, and that's the piece that again, that's layers and layers and layers underneath that. But helping
so many,
helping people, giving them the tools to be courageous enough to start peeling back those layers is going to be the defining difference that's going to help them to move forward. We always want to kick things under the rug or act as if, but deep down inside, there's something that's keeping us going back, doing things so we know it's not self-serving, it's not self-loving, it doesn't reflect who we want to be. And so we now have to understand there's a heavy component to our emotional mental health that's connected to our relationship with food.
Absolutely. When I first became a dietitian, I was like, everyone I talked to knew what to eat, but they weren't doing it. And now when I talk to clients who have been dieting for 2, 3, 4, 5 decades, I say, and they're like, well, I just don't know that I need this. Like, what if I just tried another diet? And it's like, tell me what to eat. Tell me right now.
I hate that.
Like, you are
I'm never going to tell you what to eat.
Smart. Right. No, actually, well, I challenge them. I tell me all the healthy food. Tell me all the food rules. And they can. They're amazing at it. They're pros at dieting, right? They've been doing this for 50 years. Some people I've worked with. They can tell me everything to eat. They can tell me the exact macronutrient content. They can tell me exactly how to, categorize every single food in their pantry. But if we're not taking action or something's keeping us stuck, which often comes in to, am I worthy? Do I truly believe I'm lovable? Is my body size connected to my worth and lovability? The answer is no, right? But if we're believing that we're not good enough as we are, we're trapped in a cycle. And as we had talked about before, we're constantly distracted from what is our body actually telling us? And how do we create satisfaction in our life? One thing I love to talk to my clients about is that satisfaction is a mindset. It's not something that happens physically. Yes, we have fullness and hunger cues, yes, but to truly feel satisfied with that donut, so I'm not eating fuller, that's a mindset. And that is something that we need to really begin to practice in our life if we want to feel fulfilled, not just full, right, but fulfilled.
Yes, love it, love it. I can't go without, I want you guys to jump on her Instagram page because she do have a lot of key resonating points that just helps you to just pause for a moment and think. And as we're talking about how we're all distracted by different things, especially social media, pages like hers and a lot of others are where we need to really start to go to really help us to be still and just to take a moment to learn how can we best prepare ourselves and change that relationship with food. And so I'm going to do an Instagram grab. These are the two posts that I love the most. And you say you cannot heal a body you hate. And that goes back to what I said about the healthy body. You cannot heal a body that you hate. And so I'll let you speak upon that because I'll give you my perception, but I want to let you speak upon that. What does that mean to you when you wrote that post?
Oh, yeah. So essentially something that, okay, sorry, I have to go back mentally.
And why are you
totally in?
I'll tell you what I think. And while you're thinking about it, I'll tell you what I think. I always talk about self-love and self-care, and I always talk about how can we use nutrition as a representation of self-love and self-care, not just eating the salad or eating the ground chicken or whatever, but the act of doing everything from going to the grocery store to chopping it up to cooking it. How can that whole entire time frame upon eating, you recognize it's an act of love and self-care because you're taking time for yourself. You're taking time to prepare things for yourself. And so if you don't love the body, if you're uncomfortable in your own skin or if you don't love your body, then you won't feel that that's necessary, that's important. To me, I love cutting. I will make time because I love my body and I want to give my body the most and I want to give my body the best. if you don't look at it in that mindset, you can figure out what's going to be quickest, what's going to require the least amount of work, what's the easy button. And that, to me, I look at cooking and eating. All of that is a form of self-love and self-care. So that's how I look at it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think for me, when I wrote that post, I'm gonna have to go back and like you're like fascinating me all over again. I need to go back and read my caption. Like, where was I at when I created that post? But it's true, like you really can't thrive when you're hating on your body. Oftentimes when we feel ashamed or we start to hate on something, we really start to ignore we start to ignore it. We start to try and make it smaller in our life. And by smaller, I mean through our attention, right? Start to withdraw our attention. And then what happens in that dynamic is that we start to bring more attention into diet rules and one size fits all, which really pulls us into a process of perfection over a sense of neutrality and being good enough and creating space for all the things we love. So when we're hating our body, we're essentially completely ignoring it and depressing it in our life and its wisdom. And when you're disconnected from your body, there's no way you can truly feed it in a way that's actually going to build health. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
So I want to say that that's where my mindset was, but and you're like, why would you feed it? As you said, I think you also hit it really well on the head as far as why would you feed your body? Take time to take care of your body. I think most women, when we feel this incredible sense of hate towards our body, we're not acknowledging it. We're not looking at it. We're trying to hide it all the time. And therefore we're not listening. And if we don't have that intelligence, or if we're not open to the intelligence of our physical being, how do we connect to it? And if we can't connect to it, how do we feed it?
Yep. And how do we heal it? So true. Yeah. The other one, I have one more for you. You're not alive to pay bills and to lose weight. Like, there's more to your life. Yes, we know we have to pay bills. Bills will never go away. But life is more to it than just doing the everyday remote things that we have to do. And life is way more than just dedicating our life to losing weight. I tell some people, with my clients, I have a private practice. I work with people individually with their nutrition. Same thing, similar lines to what you do. And I say, hey, you know what? Let's learn how to get there so we don't have to take our whole life trying to get there. Let's get there so we can live there. To me, I feel people struggle so many years and so much of their life. Like say, some of your clients died for 50 years. They spend 50 years trying to get to this life they want to live. How there is another path where you can get there so you can live there. And to me, that's what it's all about. How do you get there so you can just live there? So, and again, it just to me, it just responds just to your post about it's way more than just losing weight and paying bills.
Absolutely. We're not here to just people please and to fit into everyone else's idea of perfect or good enough. That's not why we exist. We're here to live our individual purpose. If we lost the diversity in our world would collapse. And it's just heartbreaking to me when people, and this was a journey I went through too, but it's so heartbreaking when people try to downplay their diversity and their uniqueness just so they can fit in. But it's also something that I think, get really caught up in is this sense of my productivity is my self-worth. I'm borrowing from Brene Brown here. My productivity is my self-worth. And my exhaustion is my status symbol. That's really when I saw that post and then I shared it. I'm not sure where it came from. It did not have a citation, but to me, that's what it was such a powerful reminder of. Your value is not in the bills you're able to pay. It's not in the cell phone that you have. It's not in your body size. It's so much more. And the fact is, when we really break down why someone wants to lose weight, we find that they already have the tools to be happy and to be healthy. They just have to stop using their weight as a reason to not own that.
I love that. That is so true. Again, helping people to be strong enough and be courageous enough to pause and really see what's really going on. I bet it's a lot of scary stuff that's underneath there, but it's a lot of beauty in it too. But if we don't take that next step to do it, we'll never know. Yeah. Actually,
it is a lot of work. but it's so worth it.
Well, that's why we do what we do, because it's a lot of work to be done, but we know what's on the other side. And that's what we're trying to help people to see and live their life in. So, Ashley, I appreciate you, throwing your words of wisdom out here. Again, this is like, as we both have very similar mindsets in how we approach nutrition, but we have different ways that we address it and the way we communicate. And the more and more we gather more individuals that have this mindset and wants to help others, the more we're going to be able to start changing this world, this dieting world, inside out. So kudos to you for just stepping out there as a dietitian and going against the grain a little bit, and also telling your story in the midst of that. So I really appreciate it. As we're getting ready to close, Ashley, I don't want to leave the door unclosed or leave the door closed. I want to allow people opportunity to know how to reach you, how to even get in contact if they want to talk about, some of your services or talk a little bit more about how you guys can work together. Like, what are some ways that people can reach out to you and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is ashleyholly.nutrition. Ashley spelled the most conventional way, L-E-Y at the end. Other Ashleys will know what I'm talking about. And it's a very popular name in the 80s, which is when I was born. And then Facebook as well. People can reach out to me there. Ashley Holly Nutrition would be my business page. And DM me anytime. That's truly probably the best way to get in touch with me. And then ashleyhollynutrition.com is another way to connect. And I believe my email's on there. And so I do have a product. I put my brain into a digital product for anyone who wants kind of a work at your own pace. Like, how do I make this fit with all the other chaos in my life? And that's called Craving Courage. So that is an opportunity that I share with any potential client, as well as one-on-one coaching.
Great. Yeah. Nice. I'm glad that you do that. You have those extra resources that help individuals, even with or without your presence. And that shows just how much you're in it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, again, Ashley, thank you again for taking the time all the way from Wisconsin. I really appreciate again you being a part of this podcast show, and I'm hoping that again like-minded individuals like you and myself can start making some of these changes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be a part of this tribe of brave women willing to put ourselves out there, and I'm so grateful that you're in it too.
Yes. Same here. So everyone, again, you have heard Ashley's story. You understand her worries behind why she is so headstrong about helping to change individuals' lives and utilize nutrition as a gateway to do so. As you know, this is the Dietitian Against Diets. It's never about the diets. It's always about the diet mentality. How can we break free from the constant, influence that we recognize or don't recognize? How can we break away from the marketing and media pieces that force us to feel like we have to confine ourselves to these rules and regulation when it's not even about that? So continue to watch shows like this, share it to others. There's so many women out there that needs this type of information. If you know this is valuable to you, please feel free to share this to others. And again, this is Dietitian Against Diets. I will see you guys next week. Take care. Well, thank you again for taking the opportunity to listen to the podcast show. I'm really hoping that the stories that you're hearing that are resonating to yourself. And if they are, feel free to share it to others by sharing it via YouTube, sharing it via Facebook, or sharing it via Instagram. And also I want to do a quick shout out to one of my podcast partners. You may have seen their logo before. You may have heard of them before, but they're called Undeniably Dairy. Undeniably Dairy. Let me make sure I say that correctly, which is really centered around educating about dairy sustainability practices and their undeniably good tasting dairy products. Now, it's really important to know the path of farm to table when it comes to dairy products. And this platform, Undeniably Dairy, allows that to be a hub that brings farmers and consumers together. So many of us, don't understand the hard work that are done every day by dairy farmers. And also many of us may not even know how much heart is put behind the animal care. Now, I remember I've gone to a couple of farms myself, but one farmer told me, and I will never forget, he said, happy, healthy cow always produces the highest quality of milk. So that makes sense to me why animal care is so important and why it's top priority. If you're curious about getting to know where your dairy products come from, and also the real work done and seeing the things behind the scenes, go to usdairy.com and learn of the stories, learn of the processing, and learn all the sustainability practices that undeniably dairy is doing for our consumers and for our earth. Take care, guys, and I will see you next week.